Well, hello, everybody. It is Wednesday. Is it the 25th? February 25th? 24th? Something like that. And this is Chattin with CHAP, and I'm your host, Ginger. So I'm so glad you are with me here today for our little chat. I have the wrong car today because my steering wheel doesn't hold my phone well. So I'm sorry if my camera moves around a little bit and it's a little weird. It's awkward today. So anyway, here I am and here you are. And I'm very glad you're with me. It's warming up. Like I'm sitting in my car. I could take my jacket off and my hat, and the snow is still everywhere, but it's really warm. So it's a peek of what's to come, which is so nice. It's so good. So today we have an interesting topic. I see this every once in a while out in groups. I definitely saw a lot of this question early on when all the mandates were happening and people were thinking, do I want to keep my children home? What does the cost of homeschool? All this sort of thing. People were asking the question, why don't homeschoolers get a kickback from the government because their kids aren't in school using that money? So I'm going to chat about that for a few minutes with you today. So the first thing I want to mention with that is you can look at you paying taxes in a few different ways. One way is, well, if you were a public schooler, okay, so I'm paying for the education that I got. You could kind of look at it that way. Now, if you weren't a public schooler and you're a second generation homeschool family, well, then that one might not fly. The other thing you can think about is, even though we're homeschooling, the rest of the community is not, and we want to encourage them to be adults that can contribute to society. So paying the taxes, the school taxes, could help in that. And this is another reason why you would want to be part, and we should be, even as homeschoolers, we should be part of the local school boards. Because as people living in a community, you want to know what's being taught to the people that are going to be living in your community, even though we don't use the public school system. Interesting thought. It was brought to my attention. I thought, you know what? That's a really, really good point because I want to live in a healthy community. I want to live in a community where there are functional people who keep jobs and work hard and support our community, right? So being involved in the community that way is important. So you could look at your tax money as going to support that type of thing. The other side of it that I want to share with you is to think about, and I've talked to many well-meaning legislators that say, you know what, we're going to get you homeschoolers some money. We want to get you some money. You shouldn't pay taxes in for school and not get any money back. We're going to help you out. And I've actually cautioned them, and I said, listen, it is very tempting to get, I'm going to put it in quotes, free money. Very tempting. I mean, who wouldn't? Then you can do the really cool sports thing or the really cool curriculum or the big field trip or whatever. Who wouldn't want that? However, is the money really free? Is it really free? Can you really do anything you want to do? Is there really no strings attached, no cost attached? And I question that. So let's think about some of the organizations we know or companies that we know or schools that receive money for the government. Colleges. What happens to them? What happens to their ability to teach what they want to teach, do what they want to do, say what they want to say? They are controlled to some extent by what the government says is okay to do. And what pops into my head even is I think about our churches and our church exemptions, right? So to a certain level, the government can say what a church can do because we're tied to the government through our tax exemption. That's a big thought, right? So what's happening in these other organizations that do receive those funds from the government? Well, when I look at those situations, I think, I don't like what they're able to do to the groups and how they're able to tell them what to do and how to act and how to function. So my take is I don't want the government's money because I want to teach my children what I think my children need to know or what my children ask me to learn. And I don't want anyone telling me that I can't do that. Especially as a Christian homeschooler, I want to teach my children all about Jesus and living for Jesus. And I want that. I mean, that's life. That is life. That is every moment of every day for us is living for Jesus in everything we do. And I don't want someone to tell me that I can't do that because it's that important. So in that way, if you do receive money from the government, they can restrict you in some ways. Or they might say, okay, well, you can teach your kids all about Jesus, but you also have to teach them about this and this and this and this. And you have to teach them this particular history, and you have to teach them about, all these other things that you're like, oh boy. And some of those things might be cultural things that you do eventually have to train your children in because they need to be prepared to deal with the world around them. But you would want to do it on your own time schedule when you know that your children are ready to deal with some of these issues, not on the time schedule of someone else. So, that's where all this trickiness comes in. So they can control what you're teaching if you accept money from them. So what's the government money look like? Well, it could be anything. It could be tax credits. There are some states that are trying to lure in homeschooling by having a savings account? Education savings accounts, ESAs. I don't think they're in Pennsylvania. I could be wrong. But I know there are other states that are concerned about this because, oh, hey, have this education savings account. It's a great place to save your money up. But then it's tied to the government because it's tax-free or something. And then they can tell you what to do with it or when you can use it. Government subsidies, anything like that is money from the government where they can then come back and say, well, you got this from us, so we want you to do this. So that's a warning. That's just a warning against taking government money. And you know what? It does take sacrifice. It does take sacrifice. There's just things you can't do. I mean, we got really old cars and we don't take big fancy trips and we don't have cable and we don't, we go to a community aid store and there's just stuff you need to do because of the choices you make. And you do still pay taxes for school because it's, part of the deal. So that's the explanation for why we encourage people to not ask for government money, to not receive government money. And as we work with legislators as an organization, CHAP as an organization, we are not going to be seeking that. We're not going to be seeking money from the government. I would much more have my thoughts on changing the homeschool law, making it less restrictive, that type of thing. So, so those are my thoughts on government money, and feel free to share that around so others know why we don't want to have a government handout necessarily, because we want to be able to train our children the way we want to. That's the whole reason. Okay, so that's all for announcements and why not to accept government money. So enjoy your warm day. It's going to be soggy out there in the grass. So we'll talk to you later. See you next week. Bye.